Welcome to Higher Dimensions. This is Aaron Tomlinson. I want to thank you for taking some time to watch this video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like the video and you'd like to hear more about this and other things, other topics, I'd sure appreciate it if you would subscribe, hit the subscribe button below and hit the little bell to let you know when I release new videos. Also, if this helps you and you think it's something that people need to hear, I'd appreciate it if you'd share it as well. I want to talk about leading from the heart, but I'm not talking just to leaders. I'm not talking to people who have positions, or just to people who have positions over other people, leading in organizations or churches, whatever the case may be. That's typically how we think about leadership. I want to talk about leading your life. I want to talk about responding to this crisis, responding to what's going on in your life, whatever it may be, from a place in your heart rather than from other areas and other patterns of energy and states of mind that can get us, just don't necessarily lead to the best outcomes for us. And in order to talk about this, I want to use an ancient, what I call a map of consciousness, that is the chakra system that comes out of the East. It's more, there's more awareness of it and use of the chakra system in Hinduism and Buddhism, although it's been exported and assimilated into a lot of Western people through a lot of different spiritual teachings and things like that. Now, some of you may not know what chakras are. Some of you may think that chakras are completely demonic. Some of you may think that it's all just made up and a bunch of spiritual mumbo jumbo. And that's okay, I can respect that. But I want to understand, I want you to understand that the way I'm talking about the chakra system is not like it's a literal reality in and of itself. I want to look at it more as a map of patterns of energy or states of consciousness that we fall into when we're going throughout life. If it helps you and you want a Western, more scientific psychological model, you can take the chakra system that I'll explain in a minute, and you can lay it next to Maslow's triangle. Remember Maslow's triangle of the hierarchy of human needs? You can look at that and you can compare it to the chakra system, and you'll see that what Maslow's talking about, perfectly mirrors the chakra system. So this isn't something to be afraid of. This isn't something where I'm inviting you to participate in a religious concept that you are not interested in. I'm simply using it as a map to describe the states of mind and emotion or patterns of energy that we go into when we're experiencing our lives and responding to the various things that are happening to us. Now, in the chakra system, it is believed that there are wheels of energy that align up the spine, that begins at the base of the spine with 7 major chakras that move up the spine and finish at the top of the head. And like Maslow's diagram of the hierarchy of human needs, there's an interplay of energy between these chakras, and each one builds upon the next. So the successful navigation and balancing of the lower levels, like in Maslow's hierarchy, then gives us a foundation to go to those higher levels. And the goal is to move up. And so it gives us a map to help us understand some things about states of consciousness. It helps us understand ourselves. And it also helps us understand if we're ascending and, as some people like to say, raising our vibration, or if we are descending and lowering our vibration. And when we lower our vibration, we are less resilient and we are less intelligent, and we respond as the effect rather than as the cause. In other words, we lose the sense of power. The center or location of power is outside of us, over our lives, dominating over us, rather than located within us, where we are responsible and navigating and controlling the things that we can control and creating a new reality for ourselves that is one that is beautiful and elegant and successful for us in our lives. So first, a little bit about the chakra system. You have the 7 main chakras. At the root chakra, or at the base of your spine, you have what's called the root chakra, and this deals with your safety and security needs. This deals with the earth. This deals with basic needs of health and shelter. So oftentimes when we're dealing with issues of disease, like we are now, or issues of lack fear in regards to our basic human needs like food and shelter and money and where is it coming from, all of that can find its origin and its genesis and its location in that root chakra center, Or we could say that our mental and emotional state becomes one of survival. We're just interested in our physical survival, and that is the motivating interest, the pattern of energy and thought and feeling that we're responding out of as we deal with crises or situations in our life. Excuse me. Above that is what's called the sacral chakra. And in this pattern of energy, it deals with our pleasure centers, our physical pleasure centers. So this deals with food, this deals with sex, this deals with comfort. It deals with, you could say instead of our basic survival needs, this deals with our wants. So when we're operating from the sacral chakra, we are in patterns of thought and patterns of emotion where the driving motivating force is our pleasure, our physical pleasure. So whatever gave us pleasure that has been taken away from us, if our primary motivation is, I just got to get that thing back, then we're operating from that lower center. Hopefully this is starting to make sense. Above that is the solar plexus chakra, and this deals with our power or our will or our right to choose. So you can watch the interplay of these three. We have survival needs, we have basic wants for comfort and pleasure. We want to avoid pain. We want to pursue pleasure. These are all natural, normal human things. They're nothing to be ashamed of. And then our third one is our will or our power. So you can see how we move up into this third chakra when we are trying to exert our power upon the world, our power upon the environment, our power upon other people, so that our basic needs and our basic wants can be met. So a lot of people never get above those three. They just stay stuck in those three in the interplay of energy. I have a need, I have a want, I move up into the power chakra. Oh, I got to figure out how to get it. Somebody took it away from me. I got to go after them and attack them. I've got to hoard things for myself so that I make sure that I don't run out, so that I make sure that I'm taken care of, and it doesn't really matter about anybody else. It really is the animal nature. We're operating very much in the human aspects of us that are part of the animal world when we're operating in those three lower chakra centers. And so you see a lot of competition, you see a lot of survival of the fittest, you see a lot of me and my four and no more, and those can become the motivating patterns of energy that happen in our lives. The fourth one that I want to focus on today is the heart center. Now, when you get to the heart center, now there is a transition where you are transitioning or moving from the animal survival pleasure gaining nature into higher realms of spiritual consciousness or spiritual development. You're developing your spiritual person. Now, again, if you don't like the spirituality talk, you can relate it to Maslow's hierarchy, and you're moving into the place of self-esteem, and you're moving into the place of self-actualization. So the heart center is this place where I begin to develop some of these spiritual qualities of love, some of these spiritual qualities of peace, the spiritual qualities of joy, the spiritual qualities of compassion. And also I begin to live my life that's more from a place that's more transcendent. In other words, I realize that there's more to life than what is being presented to me in the present moment from this three-dimensional reality. And I'm beginning to ascend above that and connect with transcendent realities, be they God, some people connect with angels or spirit guides, but things that are in dimensions or realities that are in dimensions that we don't see. And when we begin to live from that place, which I'll talk about just a little bit more in a moment, then we become less reactionary to what's going on in our life. The locus of control, the locus of power, the location of power and control begins to become centered within us rather than outside of us. And we begin to operate from a place of being the cause rather than the effect. That doesn't mean that we cause everything or can control everything. It just means that we recognize what we can cause, what we can do, and what we can control, and we begin to lead and operate and move from that place rather than from the reactionary place of needs, wants, desires, and these power struggles that we get into. The next chakra is the throat chakra. And this obviously relates to our voice. It relates to our place of speaking, but not just speaking, but being able to speak our truth. And here's what I mean by our truth. When we are operating in those lower levels, those patterns of energy, we're fighting for our survival. We're fighting for what we want. We're fighting for pleasure. We're fighting other people to see who's going to be in control and whose will is going to be done. then we are really living just in this three-dimensional reality. And because every spiritual tradition, every religion, every spiritual path teaches us that there are transcendent realities, that there are realities outside of us, that there are forces outside of us that are other than these three-dimensional experiences that we're having in this world. So when we begin to move up from that, again, we begin to see more clearly what's really going on. So we speak from the heart, and we can speak truth from the heart that reflects this larger nature of metaphysical reality. And so we begin to speak differently. Our language literally begins to change. Our mode of expression, you can think about this as the mode of expression, not just language, not just words, but your mode of expression, your behavior, your way of being in the world begins to come from a greater place of authenticity and a place of a broader perspective on reality and what's really going on. And you're not as bound by whatever's happening in your present moment. So you're not as triggered and you're not as reactionary, but you're moving from that place. And then the next one is what some people call the third eye. And this is in the map, it's in the forehead, and it relates to intuition. They call it the third eye because now you're able to see what others cannot see. So again, you're making contact with the invisible. You're being moved more by your intuition and your intuitive wisdom and your intuitive knowledge. You're being led more from within by the heart rather than responding again to what's going on around you. So you can see as you begin to move up this ladder of consciousness, of states of being, that you become less reactionary, you become less bound by what's happening in your circumstances in time and space, and a fuller expression of who you are from the inside out begins to respond with a greater sense of control and a greater sense of positivity, you might say. And then the last one is the crown chakra. And when this one opens up, it's said in those traditions that this is the sort of the God chakra, if you will. This is what allows us now to relate to the creator, to relate to the source of all things. It doesn't matter what you call it. Some people call it God, some people call it source, some people call it the universe. Really doesn't matter to me. We're all talking about the same thing. We're talking about the creator, God, and we're experiencing these higher mystical states of no non-duality and oneness and all of that stuff. So I want to come back to the issue of leading by the heart. Now, again, if you look at these three lower ones of survival, pleasure, pain, and the exertion of will, you can see that a lot of what's going on in the world today and almost everything that goes on in politics, a lot of what goes on in religion, a lot of what goes on in the way we respond in our relationships has everything to do that humanity really, on a large scale, is operating from those three lower places. And so that's part of the evolutionary reason that pressure and difficulty can come into our lives. And sometimes we're stripped away from those things. You can see why spiritual paths teach detachment, because as long as my satisfaction is attached to those lower energy centers, then I'm not going to be able to transcend and open up the flowering, if you will, of my consciousness to open up to spiritual realities and spiritual dimensions. So the real transition has to happen in the heart. And here's the problem with the heart. The heart, when you get up here, it's a total game changer. And I'll give you one example, just one example, but you can think about this and meditate on this and you'll come up with your own examples as well. But I want you to think about relationships. We use this in our vernacular, even though we may not have the concepts of the chakras. We talk about in relationships being heartbroken. We talk about the heart being the symbol for love or the symbol for Valentine's Day. So this is the thing when you find people that you're moving outward towards them, and it's a place where you want to give rather than to take. As long as I'm in the lower chakras, I'm worried about getting my needs for pleasure met or my needs for comfort met from another person. I'm looking from the outside to eat something, to consume something. I don't mean eat literally like food, but I just mean to consume something outside myself to try to sort of fill that void or fill that gap inside of me. And so people turn to all kinds of things. People can turn to drugs, they can turn to sex, they can turn to relationships. And a lot of relationships just become like a drug dealer and the people that they're selling to. I need to feel loved. I need to feel good. So I'm going to relate to you because you make me feel loved. You make me feel good. And so as long as you keep dealing that feeling to me, I'll keep coming back. But it fades. It never lasts. And so what happens is we experience disappointments. We experience disappointments from other people. We experience hurts and pains from other people. We open up our heart to people and we begin to flow outward. We begin to be more spontaneous. We begin to be more authentic. And invariably, we end up getting hurt in those relationships. And so the heart center shuts down. Trauma can shut our heart center down, but really any kind of disappointment. There's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's in Proverbs chapter 13, that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. Hope has everything to do with an expectation. So again, if you go back and watch my previous video where I talked about hope, hope has to do with the heart. So when we have an expectation or we have a hope and it's deferred, it's put on layaway, it's delayed, eventually our heart begins to get sick. And as our heart begins to get sick, it begins to shut down and close off. So oftentimes, if a person is going to return and reopen their heart, they have to deal sometimes with those pains and those hurts that have caused them to shut down in the first place. So we put up walls, we put up defense mechanisms, we begin to relate to people, and we can't get past that place. So we're relating again from those places of needs for survival, needs for pleasure, and the need to exert our will over other people. So when we begin to realize this and we begin to say, okay, I'm ready to change my mode of being. Sometimes all you have to do is set the intention. And you can feel into your heart, both physically and emotionally. You can feel into your heart and you can feel when it's closed off and you can feel when it's open. When you're defensive, when you're walking around on eggshells, when you're worried about what other people are going to say about you or how they're going to judge you or how they're going to respond and how that's going to affect your world, chances are pretty good you're not operating at all from the heart. So again, coming back to the heart is this place where you set your intention. I'm going to open my heart up. And you can even begin to make affirmations to yourself. I'm going to live an authentic expression of myself. My primary value is going to be being authentic rather than the outcome. You really can't live from the heart without becoming sick if you are attached too much to an outcome, because hope deferred makes the heart sick. So hope that is attached to an outcome that is too specific, it's attached to a certain person being in a relationship with you, it's attached to a certain activity that you want to be able to do but you're not being able to do, it's attached to anything in this physical world that is an outcome for you. Your goal, your mode of operating is to work in such a way to get the outcome to come back to you, rather than my mode and my goal of operating is to live my life from a place of authenticity, from a place of openness. And yes, I will be hurt in the process. Yes, I will not get what I want all the time. Sometimes even my basic needs might be denied me. But that's okay because I'm not living from those other energy centers. So therefore, they are not driving and pushing me forward. So back to my contrast, my comparison, I kind of got off on a rabbit trail there so that you can understand the difference in the mode of operating. When you're operating at those lower levels, you're competing. You're competing with others to see if your will can be done over theirs. You're competing with others to make sure that your needs get met, regardless of whether or not their needs get met. You'll even take from them in order to meet yours. Thievery, stealing, lying, all of that stuff relates to competition. It relates to survival of the fittest, survival of the strongest, those kinds of things. When you begin to move up from the heart center, you begin to include others in this whole thing that's going on in your life, and you begin to move and relate to people from a spirit of cooperation. When you begin to move from a spirit of cooperation, you begin to realize there's enough to go around, that I can have my needs met. I can have some of the things that I want, but not at your expense. I can include you. So instead of competing to see whose will is going to be done, we include one another. We compromise with one another. We cooperate with one another so that we can all begin to move into this place of sort of a win-win situation. So you can understand whether or not you're leading by your heart based on asking yourself the simple question when you're doing something: what's driving me? What motivation is driving me right now? Is it that I want to win? Is it that I want my will over the other person's will, so therefore I'm operating from competition? You're descending. You're going to a lower vibration. Or is it that I want to see what value does this person bring to my life? What value can I bring to their life? And how together can we create a synergy that will allow us to cooperate, to move together, and to move forward into a higher goal? When you're operating from the lower centers, you're looking for the darkness that's out there. You're looking for the evil. You're looking for the wrong. You're looking for who's to blame. When you're operating from the heart and places above, you're looking at the light in people. You're looking at the good in them. You're looking, what values do we share that we can agree upon? What can we work together upon? These other things, they're insignificant. Who's to blame? It doesn't matter who's to blame. As long as I'm blaming somebody, I am again putting the locus of control and power outside of myself rather than within myself. So that when it's within myself, I don't need to blame anybody because I'm not a victim of anybody. And whatever comes my way, as difficult as it may be, I recognize that I am a great enough being. I am a great enough individual that whatever it is, I can overcome it, I can push through it, I can get through it to that better day and to that better tomorrow, which brings me back to hope. If we really want to have hope in this time, we have to let go of some of the things that we've let go of. Hope never moves backwards. And there's so many people that want to get back to life the way it was, rather than understanding that life is moving forward, but it's moving us to a higher evolutionary place. And that we have to begin to imagine a future for ourselves that we've never had before, that we've never experienced before. And it can be a better place. It can be an improved place. It can be a higher place. But it's going to be more inclusive, and we've got to go there and we've got to move there together. So we have to quit arguing over some of the petty things that we argue about. We have to stop being so opinionated and worrying about whose opinion is right and whose opinion is wrong. Those are all the structures of the lower consciousness. The other thing that you'll begin to see happen as we move forward in what's happening in our world today is you'll begin to see that there are going to be pockets and segments of humanity that are going to ascend. They're going to choose a different path forward. They're going to say, let's choose the path of love. Let's choose the path of compassion. Let's choose the path of cooperation and inclusiveness. No longer this world of I win and they lose, but this world of how can we together create a better world. You're going to begin to see people living more authentically in their expressions, not as attached to outcomes, but their goal is going to be, I want to give my voice to the world. I want to give my gifts to the world. I'm not here just to take. I'm not here just to use. I'm here to benefit, and I'm here to contribute. Not at the expense, not at this sort of super sacrificial expense of the lower centers. Remember, you can't get here without building upon the others. So your needs are still important. Your wants and desires are still okay, and you have a right to be here. You have a right to, in situations, make your own choices. You have free will. You can set boundaries. You can get people out of your life that are no longer healthy for you. You can choose to connect with people that are going more the direction that you're going. You can say no. All those things are a free exercise of the will. And when those things are properly aligned and when they're properly balanced, all of those things have their place. But as we begin to move from the heart, we begin to live from the inside out, and we begin to discover this vast richness of resource, of intuitive knowledge, of spiritual knowledge and spiritual understanding. And we're living in a time when spirituality can begin to blend with the physical, so that you can see spirituality and science and health and all these things beginning to come together instead of cooperating with each other. Coming together instead of religion versus science, faith versus reason. No, there is a place for, it's not either or, there is a place for both. That's another frame that you move out of when you begin to move from your heart. You move out of this either or. It's got to either be this or it's got to be that. No, it can be and both. You begin to move from the place of dualism of there's all good and perfect over here, and there's all bad and evil over here, and they're in opposition. And you begin to realize that there is an interaction of burden and benefit, and you can begin to balance the burden with the benefit in your own life. Realize that every change you make in your life, even the positive ones that you make, are going to come with new burdens. And so you want to balance that. One of the metaphors that I use is you want to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. And when the juice is not worth the squeeze, it's not serving you anymore, and it's time to let go. So I want to invite you to become more fluid, to become more flexible, to become more resilient in this time in which we're living. And you can do that by just recognizing, what state am I in right now? Am I leading from my heart and my higher energy centers, or am I leading from my basic survival needs? Am I leading from a place of competition? Am I just worried about being right and getting my way, or am I willing to include other people and other ideas? Am I willing to submit and admit that I'm wrong and realize it's okay? It's okay to be wrong. We all have limited knowledge, even in the Bible. Even if you believe the Bible was completely inspired, the infallible Word of God, then I want you to take a look in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, because the Apostle Paul, who in the second book of Corinthians said he had revelation beyond measure. There was given to him such abundance of revelation that there was a thorn in the flesh assigned to him. And yet he says in there that we know in part and we prophesy in part. And he even goes on to say that knowledge and understanding is going to pass away, but these three will remain: faith, hope, and love. And I want to tell you right now that faith, hope, and love are operations of the heart. So I can't give you a whole course on how to live from the heart, and it's kind of like trying to tell somebody how you know when you're in love. Just observe yourself, observe your patterns, observe your reactions, observe your motivations, be aware of this, and set your intention to open up your heart. Feel into your heart, feel into it physically, feel into it emotionally, notice the blocks that are there, and just let it begin to open up gently and softly. Don't try to force it. The heart does not respond to force, but just gently nudging it, gently sending the intention, gently sending the suggestion, looking at ways to move from either or dualistic frames to and both frames that are more inclusive, looking for ways to move away from competition and into cooperation. And I believe that you'll begin to be a part of the humanity and the movement that is ascending, that I believe with all my heart is working right now with the circumstances that we're facing to move all of humanity into a better place and into an even better tomorrow in so many different fields and walks of life than we've ever experienced before. Thank you once again for watching. If this helped you, I want to invite you to please subscribe to my channel. Feel free to comment in the comments below, even if you disagree with my take. And I thank you. Once again, God bless you. Shalom. Namaste. The divine in me recognizes the divine in you, and I honor it.